try not to put into the market substandard coffee. Try not to produce substandard coffee.
And you also say to the roasters, don't buy it?
And that we cannot say.
Coffee also has other competitors, like soft drinks, which could pose a threat.
In the long run, there could be a problem because there is a competition with other liquids out there. And it's their responsibility and their game to see what do they offer to the consumer. And I give you this very clear statement in the sense that those countries in the traditional markets in which there has been an increase of some low-quality coffees, we see a decrease in consumption. Consumption per capita in countries like Germany. There are roasters and roasters. There are some that only use the best qualities. There are others that mix a little bit more. I cannot qualify what the business attitude of the roaster is, but they know that if they do not maintain a minimal level of quality, sooner or later the consumer is going to desert them. It's a matter of how the consumer is approached, how the blends are made, and the technology that intervenes in the processing of coffee in consuming countries is more and more sophisticated. Now there are procedures to take bad quality coffee with a lot of defects, do evaporization, and take out bad taste or bad smells. I think that there is a lack of transparency for the consumer about what he is drinking.
70% of the world's coffee is produced on farms of less than 10 hectares. For these small farmers, the boom in cafes and coffee shops in the developed world in recent years has not brought huge benefits, because the amount of coffee they're selling is actually quite small.
If you see companies like Starbucks, like Costa, like many companies that develop around the world, they are expanding, they are offering and they are attracting a way of life. Coffee is just part of it. If you look closely the proportions, you will see that coffee is not the higher proportion in what is being sold. But it's new approach, it's new consumers, but it's a very small segment of the market.
Coffee-producing countries have seen the value of the coffee they export fall by 20% in the last decade, from $10 billion in 1990 to $6 billion in 2000. But they could sell to their own populations.
I give you the example of Brazil, that in 8 years went from 8 million bags to 14 million bags of consumption. It's a big population, the incomes of the country have increased. We think that countries like Colombia, like Mexico, like India, like Indonesia, with the population and the incomes they have, they could repeat that example.
Yet another option for small coffee-producing farmers is to diversify and move into other crops, but crops which have a value and a market. Growing coca for the cocaine trade has been an option for farmers in Central America. Other crops are more difficult.
Prices drop and people find that they go out of business and they can't make money in it, so they get out. That is the nature of the market. You have at the moment an oversupply in coffee. There is no doubt that people will leave coffee production. They will either leave the land completely and go into cities and towns looking for jobs, or they will switch to other methods, other production.
But as the Ethiopian farmers who face this dilemma understand only too well, it's hard to invest in new crops without any money.
If the world does not take an interest in our coffee, we may just as well plow the land and grow something else. But we don't even have money for oxen.
Coffee farmers would love to diversify out of coffee, but they find themselves imprisoned by walls set up by rich countries. If they want to move into maize, they find their markets are dumped. If they want to move into peanuts, they find they can't export because there's huge barriers to exporting peanuts, for instance, to the United States. So although they are desperate to move out, and everything is screaming at them to move out of coffee, they actually find themselves imprisoned, unable to shift out of coffee.
Fair trade offers another way out of the coffee crisis. Currently, fair trade accounts for just 1% of the global coffee market, although it is growing. Sales of fair trade brands increased by 22% between 2001 and 2002. Fair trade enables consumers to make a choice over how their coffee is produced.
Fair trade plays a vital role in so many coffee farmers' lives. It's increased massively because there's a strong consumer demand for a coffee that has been produced and bought at a decent price that's been paid back to that farmer. Equally, the money that's paid back to the cooperatives is invested in the communities, such as in the schools, in the health clinics, but also in the marketing of that coffee for the future. It provides a vital source of revenue for many, many poor coffee farmers.